Welcome back to Burn the Ship, where we meet with entrepreneurs to help you go all in on your business. I'm your host, Carson Brown, and without further ado, I'll kind of allow my guest to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Davenport. I'm the CEO of the C.L. Stuart Institute and the founder and leader of Burning Heart Collective.
Awesome. We've had some great conversations, not only over the phone, but today. I'm kind of just going to give you the floor and allow you to speak about yourself, kind of how you
Sure.
got to the point you're at. I really enjoyed to hear it, even though I didn't get the full spiel, but just really have the floor and let people know how you got to where you're at and why you're here.
Sure, absolutely. As the CEO of C.L. Stewart Institute, I lead an initiative bringing STEM related resources to kids in under resourced communities. So, STEM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's STEM is the fastest growing and highest paying sector of job opportunities in the coming couple of decades. And we know that kids in Title I schools, kids who wouldn't necessarily have access to tutoring, perhaps, or science labs in their schools, are really missing out on the opportunity to compete for those jobs later in life. They're not even prepared getting into high school and college to take on higher education that would propel them into those jobs. So we really want to bring resources in elementary and middle school so they have the educational foundation as well as some character development that helps them really develop discipline and all the attributes that prepare them for success. And so the way that I got there is kind of a twisted path, if you will. I didn't even realize it actually until I started working on this particular initiative and realized, hey, I went to a Title I school back in
Yeah.
rural South Carolina when I grew up. My parents were lower middle class. I didn't think about it back then, but I realized how impactful education was on my later success in life. But I also realized that there were things that I needed in other aspects of my life, psychologically and emotionally, that I didn't have. So we're working to incorporate some aspects of that into the program. And that sort of leads me to Burning Heart Collective.
Yeah.
So Burning Heart Collective is a holistic wellness coaching program. I do executive coaching, really oriented towards women who are in my season of life, professional women who've achieved a high level of success professionally, but still feel like that little spark is missing. It's been extinguished somehow, and they're asking, hey, what else is there? And so I've kind of taken the journey myself, having gone 25 years in a technology career, very highly successful in that career. From the outside looking in, people would have thought, gosh, she has it all. But there are definitely some struggles there and things that I needed to incorporate back into my life to really be able to step forward into my passion, which is philanthropy, with the C.L. Stewart Institute, as well as then helping and guiding other women to reignite that spark.
Absolutely. When you speak about that spark and that there's a time that you noticed that you kind of were missing something, was there just an actual moment that you were kind of in an area where you're like, holy cow, something's going wrong?
That's a great question. And it wasn't a specific moment in time.
Yeah.
It was a series of moments.
It's like a domino effect.
Exactly. And the more I grew professionally into my success in the technology industry, which I'm so grateful for, I've just been so blessed. But the more I grew into that, the more that little voice in my head was saying, "Are you really doing what you were put on this planet to do? And is there something different that you're being called to?" There was a pivotal moment, though, I will say. The founder of C.L. Stewart Institute is someone that I've worked with for about a dozen years now. He's from Jamaica. He and his business partner have been wildly successful in the
Yeah.
technology industry. And I had the good fortune to start working for one of their companies about 12 years ago, and the even better fortune of working directly for him. And he's been an incredible mentor, both personally and professionally. But he took us all, his direct staff, on a business trip to Jamaica. And part of the trip, we did a service project at one of the schools in Jamaica. And seeing the kids there who were living in abject poverty, going to school every day, even some of them without shoes on, playing soccer on the soccer field without shoes, and living a life of so much joy despite
Absolutely.
their circumstances. That was a pivotal moment for me. And so I told him at that point in time, C.L. Stewart's predecessor was a private family foundation. He and his wife and his business partner and his wife had founded a private family foundation. And I said, if there's ever a time that I can step full-time in philanthropy with one of your interests, that's where I want to go. And it took about, goodness, 6 or 7 years in the making, but here I am. So that kind of, it reignited the spark for me to know there's something different that I wanted to do. I had no idea how it was ever going to come to fruition because I had built such a career in the technology industry. I couldn't wrap my head around how I was going to take that leap into something different.
Absolutely. Do you feel as if the original challenge, that the spark that you were missing maybe was the emotional success, was connecting to something emotionally instead of having all your ties into success in a monetary value?
Yeah. Oh,
maybe
yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's just jumping into something with more passion and emotional connection. And like you
Yes.
spoke on, when you saw those kids and you were able to notice that their enjoyment and into something like that, do you believe it was more the emotional side that you were missing?
Passion is everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is.
Passion is everything. And I, that's really one of the reasons why I founded Burning Heart Collective.
Absolutely.
It's a return to passion, purpose, and play. And a lot of people are like, wait a minute, we live in a culture of productivity. You can't spend all your time focused on your passion and playing, but you can. And that leads to ultimate productivity. If you're focused on things that aren't coming from what lights your soul on fire, it's unlikely that you'll ever achieve a level of success that fulfills you in every area of your life. You might find some success in a relationship, or you might find some success from a career perspective. But if you're looking at your life holistically and you want to have balance and you want to have satisfaction in every area of your life, you can't ignore one for the sake of the other.
Absolutely. You've kind of answered a good bit of my questions by speaking, especially when it comes to passion. When it comes to certain accomplishments or milestones, are there certain ones that you teeter towards, like being more grateful for or more, passionate about or excited that you've done it?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm grateful for everything, and that's something that I've learned over the years. Growing up, gratitude wasn't, yes, be thankful, but it was not the focus of waking up every day and thinking about what our blessings are. And so I'm grateful for everything, even the things that didn't work out so well.
Absolutely.
But if I had to say one thing that I'm incredibly grateful for, it is the opportunity to step into philanthropy alongside such an incredible family with such a great mission. And to be able to walk that out now alongside them, but also the ability to build a business of my own that helps other women
Absolutely.
do this too. Like if I could just help one person to find themselves again and reignite that spark, it's all worth it.
When talking to these women and having these connections, do you get to see it like firsthand,
I
like
do.
the excitement and the
Yeah.
passion coming back into their eyes and stuff like that?
I do. I do. Seeing the light bulbs go off and kind of taking them back to reimagining all those things that really light them up. Yeah, I get to see the light
Absolutely.
bulbs go off.
I feel like it's important sometimes to kind of um, take the back seat and kind of put your younger self in the front seat and kind of remind yourself what pushed you from a young age to kind of get to the point you're at, and then where did you kind of forget it at. And sometimes that can lead to extra motivation to kind of say, hey, you know what, I need to get back to this mindset, or I need to kind of rekindle some of these early flames that I had.
Yeah.
This is something we kind of like to ask people. You're in a great position now, and speaking on these accomplishments, are there certain things over time that you felt that you were very successful at, or overcoming certain obstacles that you were successful at overcoming?
Yeah, I will tell you, the last 18 months have been the most difficult of my life. I think that sometimes when you're not living from your passion, when you're not living from that place that you were created to come here and live from, the universe, God, the Holy Spirit, however you relate to that, is going to keep poking and prodding until you step up. And I've had a lot of glimmers, as I said, a lot of moments strung together where I intuitively knew that I wasn't working from a place of my own personal passion.
Absolutely.
And I had to grind things out professionally to achieve the level of success that I wanted. And so because we live in a culture of productivity, I thought, oh, this is normal. Everybody gets up and doesn't love going to work every day. That's why it's called work. And so I just sort of took that as normal and didn't realize I could actually work from a place of passion. But I think sometimes God or the universe, the Holy Spirit, kind of gives you a little nudge.
Absolutely.
If you're not stepping to, right?
Gives you a push
And so
sometimes.
in the last 18 months, everything that I thought had defined me up to that point fell away, rather painfully.
Was there an initial disconnect that made it kind of tougher to kind of, because I know when you first transition into new things, something's always kind of tugging you back, keeping you like, hey, don't forget about me, or maybe you're not making the right choice. Like the initial disconnect's always the hardest, because making that first transition, something's always kind of holding you by the leg, like don't let us go fully. Or don't completely shy away from us. Stay with us.
Absolutely. I've had those moments of intuition.
Absolutely.
For many years, and for a number of reasons, chose not to trust my own intuition.
Yeah.
And again, career-wise, that worked out incredibly well for me. But again, it required an enormous amount of energy, more than it should have, because I wasn't stepping forward in purpose. But yes, and so part of what I love to do is to help people discover why they don't trust themselves, or why they don't trust that intuition. There's usually a series of fears underneath there that we can work through, to help them really believe in themselves and to really trust that little voice that's been nagging at them for year after year.
Yeah, that's something that we've actually been reading about in our book is, obviously it's natural fight or flight.
Absolutely.
And fear it holds you back 1,000 times until you decide to fight it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of philosophical discussions about the source of fear, scriptural references about the source of fear, but I believe that everything in life is generated either from a place of love or a place of fear. And if you're working from fear, it's going to take you down some paths that are not aligned to your higher purpose and your higher calling, because that really comes from a place of love.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you were speaking on intuition, sometimes having to kind of shut it off. sometimes it's really your mind is saying one thing, but really, like you said, love and your heart is what really
Yes.
matters, and following your heart instead of allowing your mind to give you thoughts of maybe this isn't it, or this isn't going to work. You need to stick with this because you've been successful at it. And then that's when you determine, well, what is success? Is it
Yes.
is it corporate making money, or is it finding enjoyment and giving enjoyment?
Yeah.
And it seems as if you found success in your own way, and that's what a lot of people need to, figure out as well. And that seems like that's what you're doing, is helping people figure that out, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I think that when people are really moving forward from a place of purpose, everybody wins, right?
Absolutely.
Each individual is stepping forward in the things that matter most to them, and not everybody wants to run their own business. Not everybody wants to be a coach. Corporations are still going to make money because some people want to their love language is acts of service, and that's what fits
That
for
spot's
them.
always
That's
going to
what.
get filled.
Yeah, but we all have to. In fact, everybody succeeds at an even greater level when everybody is stepping forward
Absolutely.
from a
I
place
feel
of
as
purpose.
if not only when it comes to that, but your relationships, everything in your life kind of starts moving a lot smoother when you're
Absolutely.
doing something that makes you happy. It just generates this happiness that flows around to everybody around you, and it just helps your relationships. It helps you have better bonds and connections with people,
Absolutely.
because you're not on your toes anymore. You're not sluggish and just in a bad mood all the time.
100%.
And it helps you out a lot. Well, we spoke on earlier, things you were successful at, the obstacles and how you overcome them. Is there something you struggle at now or have struggled at over time that you feel like you just haven't figured out how to be very good at yet?
Well, I think every day is a practice and a
Absolutely.
discipline, right? I don't know that we ever figure it out. We're born with
100%.
natural tendencies. We're born with natural, we're born with, and then life experience reinforces some fears that we have. And so, one of the things that I practice on a daily basis, and I teach this to my coaching clients, is mindfulness. And I incorporate yoga as well. And so those are tools that kind of help you develop the discipline over time to return back to what's true. And so I wouldn't want to lead anybody to believe you arrive at a point you got it all figured out, everything's beautiful. That's just not reality.
Absolutely.
But you can develop some practices that keep you on track, and you have these tools in your toolbox. So if you start to veer off a little bit, you can think, oh, okay, these are the things that helped me get on track. Let me return to those, incorporate them into my daily practice, and it's going to be okay.
Absolutely. I think people always put a negative connotation on failure.
Oh,
and
my goodness, yes.
Failure is so bad. And no matter how many times you see these videos, you watch people speak on it and say, failure is a time for growth and to learn.
Yes.
Nobody ever listens because there's such a negative connotation on the word failure. But failure is so important. Eventually you learn how to fail less, but you're always going to fail. There's always going to be a moment where you get knocked down, and the most important part is getting back up and taking something from it and saying, well, maybe next time I won't do that.
It's so funny that you bring that up, because I was just, every coach needs a coach.
Absolutely.
And I was in a coaching session with my life coach this week, and we were working through a particular thing with one of my businesses. And she said, hey, I'm going to give you this deepest fears inventory. I want you to work through this. And I was like, oh, I've worked through all my fears. So it's funny that you bring up failure, though, because she's like, write down 20 things as quickly as you can. And it all boiled down to a fear of failure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, I thought I had gotten over this. But there was even something deeper underneath the fear of failure. If I fail, people won't like me, people won't love me, right? And so that's why it's so important to look at life holistically. And if you have this big fear of failure, what's underneath it? What do you think is going to happen if you fail? And I think about a lesson that I gave my son I was working through my own challenges with fear of failure as my son grew up. He just turned 22. He used to get so stressed out for tests.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be so worried that he would fail. And I said, listen, baby, failing is just, it's information for you to know where you need to go back and focus in to get better. It's
Absolutely.
not an evaluation of your worth. It's simply an indicator of where you are right now and things, and it points you to things that you can do to achieve your goals next time around.
Absolutely. And like you said earlier, the fear of failure, there's always something deeper. And I feel like a lot of people, it's always the connection of other people, how people are going to view me, what people are going to say about me. It's not even how you feel about yourself or how you view yourself. Every time that you fail or that there's a chance you're going to fail at something, it's what's somebody going to say?
What is everybody going to think?
How are my parents going to feel about me if I don't do this? How are my friends going to feel about me? Or what are they going to say next time I see them if I let them know that I didn't succeed?
Yes.
And that's just a disconnect people have in life right now, is believing that what everybody else has going on is going to affect them in any way, because
true.
it's not.
I love that you use the word disconnected, right? Because a lot of the tools that I use are tools to help me reconnect to God.
Absolutely.
And to reconnect to the value that's inherent in me because I'm here. And so that means when I'm connected to that, nobody's opinion of me can affect that.
Exactly right.
And it really gives me the courage to continue forward with less fear of failure, and using what I learned from failure to keep going.
Absolutely. And that's really the lesson people need to learn, is when you look at life as a whole, that this is only your life. There's nothing anybody else does, no matter what they say, they do, it's going to have little to zero, probably below zero effect on the way you move forward. And people can live happier and more abundant lives by just kind of pushing through and understanding how I feel matters, not how other people feel about me.
Yeah, and there's personal work there.
Absolutely.
For most of us.
And it is hard. Everybody deals with it. It is such it's a broad thing. And I believe now that, society has moved in a certain way, and it makes it harder because there's so much going on now, and people's eyes are on you a lot more often than they were probably 15, 20 years ago, and you're seen more often, and what you post and how people see it is you feel like it affects you, and you feel like it's going to hinder you from kind of being successful, or that your life is different because somebody has said this. But it's a society thing, and we can all grow from it.
Yeah, I think, I see a quote fairly often. It comes through social media. What people think of you is more a definition of who they are.
Absolutely.
Than you are.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really helpful for people to remember. If somebody has a negative opinion or a positive opinion about me, it's a reflection of who they are, not a reflection of who I am.
People
Only
tend
I
to
can
pass
decide.
how they feel about themselves onto other people
Absolutely.
to make themselves feel better, in a way of, if other people think that person's that, then there's less eyes on me because I'm actually that.
Yes.
So
yes.
people don't notice who I am if they think everybody else is the same person.
That is true.
Well, I got a good question here. You've kind of spoke on it, but this is kind of a question to really, pinpoint the audience. What advice would you give to someone in a similar position as yourself? If they're kind of struggling, or they feel like their legs getting held back, what advice would you give that person?
Well, first and foremost, I'd give the person the advice to really just take a step back and think about what success means to them. We kind of touched on this a little bit. Like, I think we've allowed culture and society to define what success is in general, and we disconnect ourselves from what it means to us personally. I was brushing up on some things this week, and the United States is the richest country in the world. And it's also the country that has the highest use of antidepressants. And nothing wrong with that. I think people need them to get over the hump, right? But if we're the richest country in the world and more people in this country use antidepressants as a requirement to maybe get through the day, that's a pretty good indication that maybe we're not doing something quite right. And I think people just need to, again, sort of take a step back, really connect to what that spark is, and if they've lost that spark, find some help to rediscover what it is, and really start to focus on what matters most to you. There's another thing that I've been digging into recently is the pleasure principle. It's like follow the pleasure. What really feels good to you, and go do that. And I know a lot of people will shrink back from that and say, "Oh my gosh, we're all going to turn into heathens, right? If we're just focused on what feels good to each individual." But I don't think that's true, because I think that people are inherently good, and if what feels good to me makes the people around me feel bad, I'm not going to do that, because making people around me feel bad doesn't feel good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's this holistic view of follow the pleasure, and I think that there's something there we should all start thinking about.
Absolutely. I think what is great that you do, and I believe more people at a young age need, is direction, and to be given direction, and not solely, hey, you fit here, get here. It's, hey, I'm gonna give you a shove and kind of give you some insight and lead you into the direction you want to choose. Not so much of, I'm gonna put you on this path and you go down it, and whatever happens. It's gonna say, hey, you have 4 roads.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a shove forward, so you got to be decisive about it, and you're gonna choose where you're happy.
Yeah.
And I believe kids at a young age kind of get trained in an aspect of, you should do this, or
100%. Yeah.
that doesn't make enough money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And there should just be more direction to chase after, like you speak of, like the pleasure and the happiness and something you're passionate about. And I believe what you do is great.
Thank you.
Well, I got another question for you. We spoke earlier about pivot when we were speaking to Jay. Do you ever see yourself pivoting, or maybe branching out and doing anything else?
I'm definitely going to stay on the philanthropy path.
Absolutely.
With CL Stuart, I have such a passion for creating opportunity and allowing people to step forward into it if they choose, if that's their passion. I don't think anybody should ever be limited in going after what they really are on fire for, because they didn't have the resources to do it.
Absolutely.
I'm really on fire for that. My Burning Heart Collective business is a fledgling business, and so there are a lot of ideas I have there. So I do coaching, I teach yoga. As part of that, I do meditations. I host retreats right now for women only. And so, I'm going to branch out in that area, and my goal there is to bring more practitioners into the collective. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I'm not going to have all the resources that every person who might find my business needs. And so I want to expand that business and really bring all the resources that I can to the table that people might need. And I'd really love to do public speaking. I've done that professionally in the technology industry. I've spent a lot of time doing that. And I might also want to tech at the university level. So big dreams still.
Absolutely. And that's awesome. I believe all of those kind of align with your passion, and I think they're all great. I think we need more people that do those types of services, because like I said earlier, there's a negative connotation on things like that, and it's solely due on the aspect of monetary value.
Yep.
And people are always chasing that instead of, acts of service towards other people and helping other people. And that's the thing that they might actually be passionate about, and they just don't know it yet.
Yeah, I remember hearing a long time ago, "Do what you love, and the money will come." And I was like,
Absolutely.
"Whatever. That's not how the world works." But it actually is how the
Yeah,
world
exactly.
works. Ask Steve Jobs if he woke up and hated work every day when we all get to heaven where he is, right? But ask anybody who's wildly successful if they're begrudgingly getting up and doing it, or are they working from a place of passion?
Absolutely.
And they'll tell you, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
I can go 16, 20 hours a day because I believe in what I'm
And the
doing. And
time
so,
flies by.
absolutely, absolutely. So if anybody listening has ever heard, "Do what you love and the money will follow," it's true. Do it. Give it a try.
Well, we have another question we like to ask. We're all human, so, and we all have our daily duties, but are there any hobbies you're into or things that you enjoy outside of work?
Absolutely, yes. I'm a Pilates fanatic. I do yoga personally. I'm very passionate about that. It's not just a work thing. I love to hike, love to read. I was actually, when I was driving over, glanced down at my bracelet and remembered that I actually want to start silversmithing. So
Awesome.
there's so many passions and personal hobbies that come alive when you can begin to truly connect to what your passions are. Painting is another thing. I hadn't picked up a paintbrush since I was in kindergarten until earlier this year, and I picked up a paintbrush and realized, oh my goodness, I can actually do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's awesome you say that when you kind of really build that connection again, how things kind of just fall in
Yeah,
place.
absolutely.
Well, um, we spoke on the phone about burn the ship,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what it meant. And well, could you tell us how burning the ship has kind of benefited you in life?
Yeah, I will tell you, I was really afraid to burn the ship
Absolutely.
for a long time, and
There was gasoline on it. The fire just
yeah,
hadn't started yet.
I was not willing to throw the match. I
Yeah,
was not willing to throw the match, and um, life circumstances helped me along in that direction. I will admit I didn't burn the ship willingly, but the ship burned nonetheless, and I couldn't be happier. It
absolutely.
created the time and space for me to really go find who I am and the passion and the purpose that is propelling me forward now.
If you could give the audience one more takeaway on why they should also burn the ship, what would it be?
Because you'll never be happier than when you burn the ship. I'm living proof, and I think even have a greater perspective on this because I didn't do it willingly. I was forced into it, and sometimes that can feel so destructive and so disheartening.
Absolutely.
But I was thrown into the fire, and I have found my way out of the flames, and it's a really great place to be.
Well, absolutely. Well, burn the ship. Thank you so much. I,
Thank you.